And welcome to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. This is my instant reaction to all the college football action that happened last night. So many great games. We got a little bit of clarity, but I can't wait for the big game next week. I got plenty of time to preview that. I'm talking about Georgia and Alabama. Both teams were on a bye this week. I'm going to break down about 11. Yeah, it's a nice round number for some of the games locally and some of the national games that happened over the weekend as well. Later on in the show, I will get into another week of college football playoff projections, and my list changes based on how the teams do. And you look at Memphis losing to Navy, and they're no longer a group of 5 team that makes the college football playoff. I was actually counting on them to go undefeated. So I have a new team that is going to be in that rankings. That's going to be later in the show. Oh boy, Auburn. I don't know what to say. I watched this game and my thoughts were maybe it's not the quarterback. And there's got to be some changes at Auburn as the fan base up in the plains are not happy about what's going on in Auburn. And probably the game of the night, which is getting all the hype for all the wrong reasons. So I'll talk about that as well. Just some house notes. Tomorrow, I will have my NFL reaction show. And of course, this is all under one umbrella as this will be aired Monday on WQEE from 2 to 3, Monday through Friday. You can catch an episode. Still out of town. I will be back next week. But I'm telling you what, I'm enjoying my time. I'm actually going to go to a sporting event on Tuesday, and I'm going to tease that based on where I'm at. I can't really give away my location, but I'll put some pictures up on the social media, and you'll see exactly where I'm at on Tuesday because it's a big sporting event, basically where I'm at. So I'm definitely going to put that up on my Instagram and on my X page. All right, let's go ahead and get right into the games. This was the game of the night because this is probably going to get the most ratings, and this is the national college football story. So college football really in my lifetime has not been this popular, and it's not because now I live in the South. Used to live in California. Maybe college football was popular when I was a kid with Notre Dame and Miami and Steve Spurrier's Florida Gators. But a lot of those headlines were regional. And in the last 10 years, Alabama and Clemson dominated college football, but it was regional. We now have national headlines. We have a national audience that comes to the TV to watch Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. Win or lose, they're going to get a big rating. And I'm here to say they're at home. It's Baylor. Baylor is not the same team they used to be with Art Briles and Robert Griffin III. This is a game you're supposed to win. But the way it ended, I mean, this is why it's Coach Prime. It's just the glamour and the glitz of the Colorado Buffaloes. And I think they'll win 6 games and make it to a bowl game. I do think that they're that good to get into a bowl game. This is a game that they should have won anyway. So basically what happened was Shadir Sanders down 31-24 with like 20 seconds left to go in the game. Throws a Hail Mary, forces it to overtime, and Colorado gets the first score in overtime. And then Travis Hunter, which I think he should be in consideration for the Heisman Trophy, gets the strip fumble and seals the game. And Colorado, don't look now, but I'm not saying that Colorado is going to win the Big 12. They are 3-1. They only won 4 games last year. I think it's doable that they can continue to improve. And I know that Coach Prime gets all the hype, but he does have 2 very special players. Shedeur Sanders, which I do think that he needs to work on his team skills and stop blaming his offensive line. He did get sacked 8 times. I think that he's got to learn to mature if he's going to be a top franchise quarterback in the NFL. Travis Hunter, can he play both ways in the NFL? Because right now, nobody is doing what Travis Hunter is doing at his level. And I think that Travis Hunter should be in New York as a candidate to win the Heisman Trophy, if not win the Heisman Trophy. Because, look, Charles Woodson won the Heisman Trophy back in '98 for playing both sides of the ball. And Travis Hunter is making an impact on offense and on defense. Well, Colorado plays Central Florida next week, the Fighting Gus Malzahn's down in Orlando. You don't think that's going to be a hype game? You know, Central Florida's undefeated. Colorado's going in there. Coach Prime going to Disneyland, or Disney World. You don't think that the media is going to hype that up? I do. I absolutely do. Great win for Colorado. But I started this show with this game because this was the game that probably had the most views, and I would not be shocked if 20 million people saw this game. I'll be interested to see what the ratings look like for this game, but this is our national base that has really been absorbed into the sport. This has always been a regional game, but now it's not just Colorado. Michigan is back. Texas is back. USC is back. Miami is back. When you have your national brands that are competing at a high level, college football is great, and it's really great for the sport. All right, let's go to the primetime game. This was just an incredible statement win for the Tennessee Volunteers on the road against a top 15 team. They have not done that since 2006. To say that Tennessee is back, I'm not going to go that far because it is the SEC. But Tennessee, I'm here to tease right now. They are a college football playoff team. Tennessee looks like they could beat Alabama because remember that game's going to be in Knoxville. I would not be shocked if they go into Athens and beat Georgia. Tennessee looks for real. I'm starting to wonder if Tennessee with their defense, because that was the story in this game. Jackson Arnold got pulled, and Oklahoma went with the backup quarterback. But Nico Alialamavea did just enough to make the plays necessary to win the game and to go into a hostile environment, to go into Norman and pull off a big win. And it was the Tennessee defense that they dominated this game. I know the score is a 10-point game, but they were up 22-3 for the majority of the game. And so Tennessee is looking fantastic right now. I think they're going to jump in the rankings. I do think that they beat Alabama in that third Sunday in October in Knoxville. They do have, if you would call them tough games, they do play Arkansas and they do play Florida. Let's not have a letdown game. If Tennessee is truly back and they are a national championship contender, you've got to beat teams like Arkansas and Florida that's on your schedule. And I know that they've only beaten Florida twice in the last 15 years, but Tennessee looks amazing. And I know a lot of Tennessee fans. Of course, Brad Page is a Tennessee fan. He's been a regular on the show and my former co-host on the Up All Night show. He's been through that turmoil with, Lane Kiffin for 1 year, which there was promise, then Derek Dooley, then Butch Jones, then Jeremy Pruitt. It was a carousel of coaches. Josh Heupel is the right guy. And I hope that Tennessee gives him a long-term extension. I'm talking about a 10-year extension. You need to keep this guy as long as you possibly can. I don't care about the buyout. Josh Heupel is the guy. It's like when Georgia found Kirby Smart. Tennessee found Josh Heupel, and you're building something special up in Knoxville. And I know for a fact they are singing Rocky Top all night long. They're probably singing it as I'm doing this show, still singing it. Anyway, Tennessee's on a very high note right now, and they look amazing. The team down in the Plains, not so much. This was a team that should have won this game. And when I looked at the schedule, I thought, well, Auburn, they got Hugh Freeze second year. Peyton Thorne is a 5-year quarterback. He's got all that experience. They started Hank Brown, and I was optimistic. I thought that Hank Brown did some good things, and he's got some pretty good receivers, Lambert Smith, Cam Coleman, coming back from that injury, although I think they need to get Cam Coleman more involved. They need to run the football more with Jarquez Hunter because he's one of the best running backs in the SEC. I think that you got to put this on coaching because it's not Hank Brown. It's not Peyton Thorne. Hank Brown had 4 turnovers in that first half. Now, 3 interceptions. There were 4 turnovers in that first half. And then Peyton Thorne threw a pick, and Auburn had 5 turnovers, and you're not going to win a game when you cough up the ball 5 times. Look, Auburn's defense kind of kept them in this game, but when Arkansas got that touchdown to put it away, Auburn's defense, you got to stop them there. You got to at least hold them to a field goal. It's 17-14. You hold them to a field goal, you give your offense a chance to go down the field. And I do have confidence that Peyton Thorne can do that in a 2-minute drive. But Auburn didn't get the job done, and they are licking their wounds this morning. I'm telling you, Auburn is in serious trouble. They play Oklahoma next, and then their schedule gets brutal. I'm thinking now Auburn 6-6 might not even make it to a bowl game. I mean, that's the thing about an Auburn fan. The sky is falling. The sky is falling in Auburn because they looked at the schedule and they're thinking, okay, here's where we're probably going to lose. Here's the winnable games. You got to win your winnable games. And you're supposed to beat Arkansas. Arkansas is a team that's got Sam Pittman on the hot seat. Bobby Petrino might take over midseason. And now Arkansas is looking pretty good because, they almost beat Oklahoma State. And they go into the Plains and, Talon Green, the Boise State transfer, actually looked pretty good at times. So, big win for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Also, we got Georgia Tech. Man, you keep shooting yourself in the foot. They had so many opportunities to win this game against Louisville. Well, first of all, down 24-19, they're getting ready to kick a field goal. They make this field goal, it's 24-22. Their defense, if they could try to find a way to stop Louisville. I thought that Haynes Keene actually was poised in the pocket. He did make some mistakes. This is a road game against a ranked opponent in the ACC. My optimism about Georgia Tech, you already have 2 ACC losses, one to Syracuse and now to Louisville. I still think that Georgia Tech is going to go to the mid of the pack in the ACC, and then they'll still be a bowl team. But, competing for an ACC title, yeah, that's definitely out of the question after losing to Louisville, who's still undefeated, by the way, and they got to face Miami pretty soon. So that's going to be a pretty good contest. All right, could have been the upset of the night, but Missouri survives. Sometimes, Georgia last week surviving and advancing against Kentucky. Missouri survived against Vanderbilt at home. You got to give credit to Vanderbilt. They beat Virginia Tech already, and they come into Columbia, and they almost win this game. If their kicker doesn't make a chip shot field goal to send it to triple overtime, maybe Vanderbilt wins this game because I thought that Clark Lee does a good job. And, Vanderbilt, look, say what you want about the SEC and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is the bottom team in the SEC. We all know that. But Vanderbilt is going to compete. They got some good student athletes. They've got a good coach. I think that Clark Lee is the right guy. I thought that Vanderbilt played their hearts out and should have won this game. Missouri survives. They are also a playoff contender because right now because they're ranked so high. I mean, you got to throw them in there with Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, all these teams at the top in the SEC. I said in the beginning of the season that 5 teams from the SEC will make the college football playoff. I'm going to stand by that prediction. All right, the 3:30 game on CBS. If you're a fan of Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson, I watched this. USC almost won this game going into the big house. Michigan goes to the quarterback change with Alex Orji, which they're going to probably stick with Orji from here on out. But you've got to run the football. This is Michigan's identity now. Michigan is still in play for the Big Ten championship. They still got some tough games, including at the Horseshoe against Ohio State. But Michigan, they beat USC. I think that USC did pretty good going into the big house. Miller Moss had a pretty good game. There was a double fumble. I've never seen this before. That was pretty cool. And I think that, USC was leading most, Michigan controlling this game. I hope I got that right. No, Michigan was controlling this game, and then USC, they did take the lead. And I thought that, both teams played tough. I love just the play of Miller Moss, and Alex Orji held his own. But it's going to be tough for USC if they want to compete for the Big Ten championship. But let me tell you something. USC stayed with Michigan in this game. You had Donovan Edwards, big run. Michigan goes up 14-0. So the game that had the fumble, Michigan was up 20-10, and USC ended up getting that fumble. They get the ball back. It's 20-17. USC takes the lead with 7 minutes left to go, and Michigan does what they do best: run the football, ground and pound, and that's how they were able to get the win over the USC Trojans. All right, moving on. Look, I like to keep it local on the show. This is a podcast based in Columbus, Georgia. As you can see, I got the Columbus skyline in the backdrop. That is a virtual backdrop. I'm not even in Columbus. But Mercer, they're a football team that's in the FCS right out of Macon, Georgia. They're 4-0. They do play Alabama later this year, but Mercer's 4-0. They beat the Citadel at 5 Star Stadium. I got to make it out to a Mercer game. I want to just give them some support because I think that Mercer is going to make the FCS playoffs. They look fantastic. We got another team from Georgia in the FCS. We got West Georgia. Can we get Mercer and West Georgia to play on the schedule? I really want to see that. Because I want to try to give love to all those FBS schools in Georgia, but also the FCS schools as well. Speaking of an FBS school in Georgia, by the way, Georgia State and Kennesaw State were both on a bye. Georgia Southern, who, gets a nice paycheck. This actually paid off for them last year when they beat Nebraska and Lincoln. They go to Oxford to take on Ole Miss. And, the narrative that Ole Miss hasn't played anybody. Jackson Dart looked pretty good. Ole Miss, in my opinion, is going to be a college football playoff contender. Georgia Southern, this is just one of those, hey, we went up to Oxford, we got a paycheck, now let's go and compete in the Sun Belt. Because let me tell you something, the Sun Belt looks very interesting. Now that James Madison, undefeated, beat North Carolina 70-50, Troy gets back on the winning track. They get a win over Florida A&M. You got Louisiana Monroe that lost to Texas, but they're going to be a pretty good team. And then Georgia State, after beating Vanderbilt, Georgia State with new coach Del McGee, they're going to be a player in the Sun Belt. And that's why they call this the Fun Belt. But yeah, this was expected by Georgia Southern. One note, and I've watched this on College Football Final, Clay Helton, the coach for Georgia Southern, was on the staff with Lane Kiffin, who was at USC, and they were both USC head coaches at one time. Utah, give me 2. They end up getting the win over Oklahoma State, and they didn't even have Cam Rising. This is why I still think that Utah is going to win the Big 12. Kyle Whittingham's not going anywhere. You look at what Kyle Whittingham has done at Utah. They go from the Mountain West to the Pac-12 to the Big 12. Utah used to be, not a Power 5. They didn't call it a Group of 5 back then, but he has built that program, and it really started with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was, leading Utah, and Alex Smith was the overall number 1 pick in 2005. Utah's really built something special. I still think they're going to win the Big 12. But there is a team that you got to watch out for, and Utah will face this team. Look out for the BYU Cougars. Here's the thing about BYU. They pretty much stomped Kansas State. They stomped them in the mouth. Kansas State was ranked. They shellacked them 38-9. BYU is going to be ranked. BYU could be now a contender to win the Big 12. What does BYU do? How is it that BYU doesn't get any preseason votes, and they're not even ranked in the preseason top 25? Talk about the disrespect for a program. Look, I know Zach Wilson played for him. I know he's not panning out in the NFL, but BYU won the national championship 1984, the first time that a non-power conference wins the national championship. And I think the team that was underneath them that had one loss was the Washington Huskies. BYU has had some great players in the NFL. Puka Nacua for the Rams, Fred Warner for the 49ers. And then I could go on and on. I mean, there's a ton of, Steve Young, obviously, Ty Detmer, Jim McMahon. I mean, you talk about quarterbacks, a quarterback carousel at BYU. BYU just, wow. This was the shocking upset. And this was an upset because Kansas State, they were ranked in the top 15 and they were undefeated going in. How about Florida? Billy Napier keeps his job for one more week. Look, I hate to say that. I love Coach Billy Napier. He is the brother of LaGrange coach Matt Napier. I want to see Coach Napier do well, and I hope that Florida look, I used to just not like Florida at all. I am rooting for Florida because we want to see Florida do well. These 4-8 seasons, they've got to stop. Florida is better than that. Graham Mertz is better than that. I don't think that DJ Lagway is quite ready to take over as the starter, but this was a must-win game. Florida had to win this game in Starkville in that hostile environment with the Cowbells. I think it helped that it was a noon kickoff, but Florida gets back on track. Here's going to be a big test for Florida. They play Central Florida in a couple of weeks. That is going to be a massive game, and I can't wait for that. But congratulations to Coach Billy Napier. Like I said, I don't want to see Billy Napier lose his job. I know that he is the coach right now that is on the hot seat, and I know there's talks Lane Kiffin, Urban Meyer. I mean, really? You really want to entertain Urban Meyer coming back to Florida? I mean, come on. That's just clickbait. That's just me being funny or trying to get more views on my show, because I just don't see that happening. Well, I tell you what, it's been a pretty good segment. What we're going to do now on this portion of the show is every week I break down the college football playoff projection. I actually will pick a national championship, and I do this every week because the landscape of college football changes. And I know Josh Pate said it best. They really needed to make a documentary on the 2007 college football season. I hope that we get that someday. I hope that we can find a season like 2007, because that was the most chaotic season ever in the history of college football. And yes, they do need to make a documentary on that. Josh Pate was right. All right, let's go ahead and look at my college football playoff projections. As you can see, I've got several teams that are flip-flopping. I got Alabama ranked 5th ahead of Georgia, and that's why, because I do think Alabama wins next week. I think that Georgia is too banged up. They don't have any skilled receivers that can take it over the top like an A.D. Mitchell or a Ladd McConkey. I think they're missing that. Oscar Delp is not Brock Bowers. I think Alabama wins. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite. I'll be interested to see what the model says on that down in Tuscaloosa. And so Alabama is going to be the number 5 seed. The new team that I got in here, and they got some work to do, UNLV. Like UNLV still has to play Syracuse. UNLV still has to play Boise State. I mean, these are games that they could lose. So if they lose these games, I think UNLV's out. I know that I really wanted to put James Madison right here, but I have a hard time putting a Sun Belt team in that group of 5. I think that the team that will get the number 12 seed, because right now no group of 5 teams are going to be ranked after the new AP poll comes out because Northern Illinois lost to Buffalo. I want to see a group of 5 team actually be ranked, but if they're not, they're going to give it to the team that probably has got the most votes in the top 25. And when, they have those college football ranking shows, there is going to be a group of 5 team that will be worthy to get this spot. So right now, I had Memphis last week. They lost to Navy. I have UNLV here in that spot. I got Texas and Ohio State flip-flopping. I was not impressed with Ohio State. They haven't played anybody. This is supposed to be a juggernaut of a team with all the NIL money, getting Quishon Junkins, Travion Henderson. They're supposed to have the 2 best running backs in college football. They should have beat Marshall 70-0. The fact they only beat Marshall 49-14. And I tell you, I love Marshall's head coach. He is that whole comment on the NIL deal with the biscuits is gone viral. I love it. Coach Huff, I'm telling you, he's got like Marshall inspired, and I would want to play for him. Not just to eat all those biscuits, but just because I think he's a good head coach. So I got Ohio State dropping down to 2. Miami kind of struggled a little bit against South Florida, but they pulled away. I do think they have a tough game against Louisville. They don't have to play Clemson until the ACC championship, which I think that's going to be the ACC championship. I got Clemson back in my projections because I think that Clemson wins out. I mean, look, they looked impressive against NC State. I think that Clemson is, they took their lesson from getting shellacked by Georgia 34-3. And I think that Clemson is on the right track to possibly get into the playoff. Penn State, although they haven't played anybody either, I think that they're back in the mix. Oregon, I'm telling you, like Utah ain't going anywhere until they've proven otherwise. But I would look out for that game against BYU because I think if they are both undefeated, BYU could possibly go beat Utah. And then Cam Rising, Utah is a very scary team. So, my number 3 and number 4 picks have not changed. I got Clemson now and Penn State in there. USC gets dropped. I'm not ready to put Michigan in there just yet. And I'm trying to see if there was anybody else that no, I put Penn State back in there just because of that reason. All right, let's take a look and see what the quarterfinal projections are. Ole Miss and Texas. And that would be at the Sugar Bowl. And then because Ohio State is, the de facto Rose Bowl, whatever Ohio State plays in is going to be the Rose Bowl. Tennessee, Ohio State, that's going to be an incredible game. And I was hesitant to say that maybe Tennessee pulls off the upset. I still think Tennessee could maybe get a number 5 or number 6 seed because I think that I'm not ready to put Tennessee because I want to see how they do against Alabama and Georgia. But I do think that Tennessee could play Texas in the SEC championship. That's how good Tennessee looked. Georgia and Miami, well, I would love to see this matchup. But we have not seen this matchup since like the 1950s. I mean, it's been a long time. And this should have been the national championship in 2002. If they beat an unranked Florida team, it's Miami and Georgia in the national championship and not Ohio State. So I would love to see that matchup. Alabama and Utah, just like back in 2008. Probably not. No, I think that we're going to go ahead and look at the semifinal projections. Alabama and Texas once again for the Cotton Bowl. And I'm telling you, these college football playoffs, they're going to be just must-see games. Every single game is going to be compelling. We're getting Georgia and Ohio State again. Yes, sign me up for that, which means I have Georgia beating Miami, and I've got Ohio State beating Tennessee, which, I mean, I think those are going to be close games if they are in the quarterfinals. And then finally, Texas and Georgia. Why not? I just I think that Texas is the real deal. Arch Manning, he's absolutely incredible, backing up Quinn Ewers. But this has been a lot of fun. I really just appreciate you spending your Sunday afternoon before football starts because what I want to do this college football reaction show. I want to air it on my Facebook page right before kickoff in the NFL. And, we got some pretty good games. The Falcons play the Chiefs on Sunday night. And, we are moments away from the start of the NFL kickoff at 1 o'clock Eastern. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to my college football reaction show. And don't forget, I got my NFL reaction show that airs tomorrow. And we will air all this on Monday on the Sports Beat on WQEE, where you can always catch an episode Monday through Friday from 2 to 3. And I'm also found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.